Let me start with the truth I spent half my life trying to swallow. The kind of truth that sits on your chest and breathes heavier than you do. On my 60th birthday, I learned that the man I loved, the man I prayed over, the man I built a life with, had another family. Not from some rumor. Not from a forgotten text message. Not even from a guilty confession. No. He walked into my living room holding them by the hand. Like a gift he thought I'd accept with a smile. I remember standing there, still holding my own birthday cake, the candles burning down to nothing. And he said, "Baby, I want you to meet someone." As if 30 years of lies could fit inside that one casual sentence. I didn't scream. I didn't break the glass plate in my hand. I didn't ask why. Instead, I smiled, a small, quiet smile that even surprised me. Because in that moment, God whispered something to me. Something soft. Something steady. "Hold your ground." So I stepped forward, and I handed him the box I had wrapped the night before, a little white box with a silver ribbon, a box meant for a husband I thought I still knew. He looked confused. They all looked confused. But I kept smiling. That same calm smile that scared him more than any anger ever could. And then, as I turned to walk away, my heel caught the edge of the rug. I stumbled forward. I heard them laugh, a little chuckle at my expense, but that laughter died. Killed mid-breath when they saw who caught me. Because the hands that reached out were not his, not my husband's, but someone I never expected to see again. Someone who had walked out of my life decades ago and swore he'd never come back. I felt his fingers close around my arm, gentle but sure. And when I looked up into his face, my whole past came rushing home at once. My husband's mouth fell open. His hidden family went silent. And I finally breathed. And that moment was the true beginning. The day the lies cracked open, and the light finally got in. When I felt those hands catching me, I knew that touch. Even after all these years, my body remembered before my mind did. There are some people life tries to erase from you, but the soul keeps their outline, like a watermark. His name was Samuel. The only man I ever loved before I learned how to protect myself. The man I pushed away when I was too young, too scared, and too stubborn to believe I deserved goodness. The man who told me, "If you ever fall, I hope someone catches you the way I would have." I guess life has a funny sense of timing. Because there he was, catching me. Right in front of my husband and the family he'd hidden for 3 decades. My husband stepped forward, chest tight, pride bruised. He said, "Sam, what are you doing here?" But Samuel didn't answer him. His eyes stayed on me, steady, calm, questioning. The way a man looks at a wound he thought time had healed. I pulled my arm back slowly, trying to stand tall again. But my knees were shaking, not from the fall, but from the weight of everything happening at once. The lies, the laughter, the return of a man who once knew the map of my heart better than I did. Samuel whispered, "You all right, May?" The sound of my name in his voice. It cracked something in me. Something I thought I buried under years of promises and routines and Sunday mornings filled with quiet resentment. Before I could answer, my husband stepped between us. Possession in his posture. Fear in his eyes. The kind of fear only a liar feels. When the truth walks into the room wearing steady shoes. He said, "May don't need you." But I didn't let him finish. For the first time in years, I heard my own voice rise with a strength I hadn't tasted since I was a girl. "Let me speak." Just 3 little words. But Samuel's eyebrows lifted as if he could feel something shifting inside me. The hidden woman, my husband's second life, stood behind him, holding 2 teenage girls close. Their eyes wide, unsure, almost trembling. I wasn't angry at them. Children don't ask to be born into deception. But I did feel something heavy like grief wearing a new coat. The room felt too small for all our secrets. Too crowded for the truth. So I took a breath. A deep one. The kind a woman takes when she knows life is about to split open. And she has to decide which pieces to pick up first, I said. Everybody sit down. I'm not running, not tonight. And just like that, the air changed. Samuel stepped back but stayed close enough to catch me again if I fell. My husband froze like a man standing on the edge of his own lies, and I felt something rise inside me, something old and something new. Meeting in the middle. This was no longer just a birthday. It was the beginning of a reckoning. And I could feel the ground shifting beneath all of us. We all sat down around that dining table, the same table where birthdays, anniversaries, and Sunday dinners used to feel safe. But that night, the wood felt colder. Like it knew something had been breaking long before I realized it. My husband sat across from me. His hidden family sat to the side quiet, unsure, holding their breath. And Samuel. He stood near the doorway, one hand resting on the frame, watching, waiting, like a man who came to return something he borrowed, and found himself in the middle of a storm. I folded my hands in my lap. They were trembling, but my voice wasn't. Not anymore. 30 years, I said. Just those 2 words. And the whole room exhaled at once. My husband lowered his eyes. He didn't deny it. He didn't gasp. He didn't even pretend to be confused. He just whispered, "May, it wasn't supposed to come out like this," I laughed. Not loud. Just a soft, tired laugh. The kind a woman makes when all the pieces finally line up. And the picture hurts more than the guessing ever did. How else was it supposed to come out? I asked. On my grave? In a lawyer's office? In a text message after your heart gave out? He didn't answer. He just wiped his forehead like the truth was sweat he could dry off. The woman, his second partner, finally spoke. Her voice was small, but filled with guilt that felt real. I didn't know about her. Not at first. He told me he was divorcing. He said the papers were coming. My stomach twisted. Because I knew that lie. I had seen that lie destroy more than one woman in my lifetime. And here it was again. Wrapped in new pain. I turned to my husband. And for the first time that night, he truly looked afraid. Not of losing me, but of facing me. Did you love her? I asked. My question landed heavy. Even Samuel shifted his weight in the doorway. My husband swallowed hard, his voice cracking in a way I had never heard before. I didn't know how to love anyone right, May. Not her. Not you. Not myself. That hurt more than a yes or a no. Because it meant I had spent decades trying to be enough for a man and who didn't even know who he was. The 2 teenage girls leaned closer to their mother, fear swimming in their eyes. And something inside me softened. Because none of this was their doing. Their existence wasn't betrayal. His silence was. I took a slow breath. The kind that stretches time. The kind that steadies trembling hands. I'm not here to fight, I said quietly. I'm here to understand, so I can decide what comes next. Samuel stepped forward then. Not close. Just enough for me to feel his presence behind Malik, a wall holding up a house that had stood too long on cracks. My husband whispered, May, I don't want to lose you. And I answered him with a truth that came from a place deeper than anger, a place carved by years of growing alone beside someone. Baby, you lost me the day you stopped talking to me. Silence filled the room. Heavy, honest, necessary. And for the first time in 30 years, the truth finally had a seat at our table. For a long moment, nobody moved. Nobody breathed too deep. Truth has a way of making a room feel smaller, like the walls lean in, waiting to hear the rest. My eyes drifted to the little white box, with the silver ribbon, the birthday gift I had given my husband, just before everything came crashing down. It was still sitting on the table untouched. A quiet reminder of the woman I was yesterday, and the woman I was becoming tonight. He stared at it like it might explode. And in a way, It already had. Just not the way he expected, I said softly. Open it. He hesitated. His hands trembled. Not from guilt, but from fear of what I might be holding inside. A truth of my own. A secret that balanced his. But I wasn't built like him. My pain never hid. It lived in my eyes, my voice, my silences. He pulled the ribbon loose, lifted the lid, and inside was a key, an old one, wrapped in soft blue cloth. Samuel straightened when he saw it. He knew that key. So did I. My husband whispered, "What? What is this, May?" I took a slow breath, steady, painful, necessary. "It's the key to my mother's house," I said. "The house you promised we'd retire in. The house you said we'd fix up together. The one you kept pushing aside for later. Because you were too busy living two lives." His face fell. Completely. Like someone cut the strings holding him upright. I continued, my voice gentle but firm, the voice of a woman done shrinking herself. "I was giving you this key today because I wanted to start over. I thought maybe if we went back to something old, something sacred, something mine, we could find our way." The hidden woman lowered her head. Even she felt the ache of that truth. My husband blinked fast, like he was trying to hold back a lifetime of regret. "May, I didn't know." I nodded slowly. "Yes, baby. That's the problem. You stopped knowing me, long before I stopped loving you." Silence again. Heavy. But this time, gentler. The kind that comes right before a wound is finally ready to breathe. Samuel cleared his throat softly. Not to interrupt. Just to remind me he was there. His presence felt like a warm coat on a cold evening, steady, quiet, familiar. I wasn't proud of the tears that formed in my eyes. But I wasn't ashamed either. A 60-year-old woman earned her tears. Every one of them. I looked at the two teenage girls, frightened, confused, innocent. And I said, "You're not my enemy. None of this is your fault." Their mother's chin trembled. She whispered, "I'm sorry." And for the first time that night, I felt something soft open inside me. Not forgiveness, not yet, but space. Space for understanding, for healing, for truth that didn't hurt to touch. I turned back to my husband and said, "This key was my gift to you. But tonight, it's my way out." And just like that, the box on the table became more than a gift. It became a decision. A doorway. The first step toward a life I had spent too long waiting to return to. I don't think anyone expected me to stand up that night. Not after everything that hit me at once. But sometimes, silence gives you a strength you didn't know was waiting inside you. The kind that rises slow, steady, like water filling a cracked cup. After I laid the truth on the table, after I told him that key was my way out, the room went so still. You could hear the clock in the hallway, counting the seconds between heartbeats. My husband leaned back in his chair, his fingers covering his eyes, like he could hide behind his own palms. Not from the truth, but from the man he had become. He whispered, "May, please, don't do this tonight." I looked at him, and for the first time in years, I truly saw him. Not the man I married. Not the man I hoped he'd grow into. But the man he allowed himself to become, tired, divided, ashamed of the life he built with lies. I answered softly, "Tonight is the only night I can do this. Because if I wait, I'll talk myself back into breaking." He finally dropped his hands and looked at me with eyes swollen from regret. "May, I never meant to hurt you." I shook my head. "You didn't hurt me in one night. You hurt me in every day you chose silence over honesty." The second woman, her voice trembling but brave, said quietly, "He told me he was trying to leave, but every time he said it, his eyes looked somewhere else. Now I understand why. I didn't feel anger toward her. Not anymore." She too had lived inside his confusion. We were two women holding opposite ends of the same lie. Samuel moved closer to the table then, not intruding, just grounding the space. His presence made breathing easier, like fresh air drifting through a room that had been closed too long. My husband's voice cracked. "May, tell me what you want me to do." I looked at him gently, with a softness I didn't expect to find. "I don't want you to do anything. I want you to listen. For once, just listen. And Lord." He sat still. He listened like his life depended on it. Maybe it did. I said, "You made choices for 30 years without letting me stand up beside you. So tonight I'm making my own choice. For me. For my peace. For the woman I buried under your comfort." The room tightened. The kind of tension that doesn't scare it freeze. Then I looked at Samuel. He didn't smile. He didn't nod. He didn't reach for me. He just held my gaze, with steady, unshaking clarity. I turned back to my husband and said, "I'm leaving this house. Not in anger, not in revenge, but because staying would turn me into a ghost. And baby, I refuse to haunt my own life." My words fell into the room, like stones sinking deep into water, heavy, honest, irreversible. For the first time, my silence didn't protect anyone. It spoke. And it spoke the truth. I walked down the hallway of that house, the house I had cooked in, prayed in, cried in, and for the first time, it didn't feel like mine. It felt like a story I had finished reading, but kept on the shelf, out of habit. My footsteps were soft, but inside me everything was loud. My heartbeat, my breathing, my fear, my freedom, all of it whispering, "Keep going, May, keep moving." I opened the bedroom door, and the smell hit me years of lavender sheets, warm nights, cool mornings, and a love that had slowly turned into duty. I stood in the doorway and let myself feel it. All of it. Because leaving without feeling would have meant I hadn't learned a thing. I reached for my old suitcase. The blue one with the tiny scratch on the corner, from our first road trip when we were still young and hopeful, and unaware of the cracks forming under our feet. As I packed, every item I folded felt like a question. My sweater whispered, "Why did you stay so long?" My scarf asked, "Who would you be if you had walked away sooner?" And my mirror, Lord, my mirror asked the hardest one, "What will you do with the woman you're becoming?" I didn't have the answers. But I had the key. Halfway through packing, I felt someone at the doorway. I didn't turn right away. I knew the weight of that presence. It wasn't anger. It wasn't desperation. It was tired love. My husband said softly, "May, please look at me." I turned. Slowly. He looked small, like a man standing in the ruins of a house he set on fire, without realizing the fire was real. His eyes glistened. Not with manipulation. Not with excuses. But with something I hadn't seen in years, truth. He said, "I never thought you'd actually leave." I nodded gently. "That's because you forgot who I was, while I was busy remembering who you weren't." He stepped into the room, hands shaking. "May, I know I don't deserve anything from you. Not forgiveness, not grace, not another chance. But please don't walk out believing I never loved you." I closed my suitcase slowly. Then I sat on the edge of the bed and motioned for him to sit too. For a moment, we were just two tired souls, trying to stitch together a goodbye that didn't tear us apart. I said, "I believe you loved me, but love that hides breaks the heart just the same." His shoulders collapsed. He cried, not loud, not dramatic, but the quiet kind that comes from years of holding grief with both hands. I reached out and touched his hand. One last time. Not to stay, not to forgive, just to honor the years we spent trying. "I'm not leaving you for Samuel," I whispered. "I'm leaving me for myself." The truth settled gently between us, warm, painful, necessary. Then I stood, lifted my suitcase, walked toward the door. When I reached the hallway, I heard him whisper, broken and soft, "Goodbye, May. I didn't turn around. Not because I didn't care, but because turning around would have kept me there forever. And that night, I carried my silence out of that house and into a future that finally belonged to me. I remember the night I realized the truth wasn't just heavy, it was alive. It breathed with me, followed me, sat at the foot of my bed like a shadow that refused to leave. After that birthday, after that laughter, after that fall, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces, the family he'd hidden for 30 years, and my own face, smiling like a fool, handing him that box. I kept hearing him say, "Baby, I can explain." Explain, what? The lost years? The secret children? The woman he promised he left behind? The Saturday mornings that suddenly made sense? The trips he said were business, when all along he'd been running between two worlds? I thought confronting him would bring answers, but all I got was a man drowning in his own excuses. He cried. He shouted. He told me he was ashamed. He told me he was scared to lose me. He told me the truth would break me. But let me tell you something, baby. Truth doesn't break you. Lies do. One night I sat across from him at our kitchen table, the same table where we'd eaten Sunday biscuits, and talked about retirement, and grandbabies we never had. I looked at him, really looked, and I asked, why didn't you trust me with the truth? He couldn't answer. Not in a way that made sense. Not in a way that could patch the hole in my chest. So I said something I never thought I'd say. Something that tasted like metal on my tongue. I need time. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away. And that hurt him more than any word ever could. I packed a small bag, just a few clothes, my Bible and my mother's scarf, and I drove to my sister May's house. The whole ride there I was shaking. Not from fear, but from the weight of finally choosing me. When May opened the door, she didn't ask a thing. She just wrapped me in her arms and whispered, "Come on in, baby. You're home." And I cried. Lord, I cried. Not because of him, but because of 30 years I had given away, without knowing the truth. That night I slept on May's couch, the soft hum of her old ceiling fans spinning above me, and for the first time in a long time, my heart had room to breathe, healing. Everybody talks about it like it's some soft, gentle thing, like it's warm tea and quiet mornings and slow walks in the park. But let me tell you the truth, baby. Healing is loud. Healing is messy. Healing is waking up in the middle of the night, your heart pounding in your throat, because your body is just now learning what it feels like to live without lies. May let me stay as long as I needed. Bless that woman. She cooked for me, prayed with me, and sat beside me when the silence got too heavy. But even with love around me, I felt lost. Like I was standing in the middle of a road, with no map, no signs, no idea which way my life was supposed to go. One morning I woke up before the sun. The house was quiet. May was snoring softly in her room. And I sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee, just listening to the old refrigerator hum. That was the moment I realized healing wasn't going to find me. I had to go find, it. So I did something bold, something I hadn't done in years. I opened a notebook, and I started writing down every single thing I had forgotten about myself. I wrote, I love morning light. I love gospel on Saturdays. I want to travel. I want to laugh again. I want peace. The list kept growing. It felt like I was meeting myself, for the very first time. Later that week, May drove me to a therapy center. I fought her at first, you know how pride gets. But she put her hand on mine and said, "Baby, sometimes God sends help wearing name tags." And Lord, she was right. That therapist. She didn't fix me. But she held a mirror up to my soul and made me see the woman I had buried under 30 years of trying to be enough. Week by week, I peeled back layers of myself. I learned that I had survived things I never gave myself credit for. I learned that I didn't need to be perfect, I just needed to be honest. And slowly, very slowly, the ache in my chest started to loosen. I even started walking in the park again, letting the wind brush against my face, letting the world feel new. There was one day I stopped under a tree, looked up at the sky, and realized I wasn't thinking about him. Not the pain, not the lies, not the betrayal. I was thinking about me, about my life, my joy, my future. And that was the day I knew healing had finally begun. Healing will change you, but it won't change the world around you. And sooner or later, the past always finds a way to knock on your door. For me, that knock came on a quiet Thursday evening. I was sitting on May's porch, rocking in her old wooden chair, feeling the breeze settle into my bones. When my phone started buzzing, I looked down and froze. It was him, my husband. I hadn't heard from him in weeks. Not because he didn't try, but because I wasn't ready. I let every call go to voicemail. I left every text unread. But this time, something in me said, "Answer." So I did. My voice was steady. His wasn't. He said, "Baby, please come home. The kids want to talk to you. They want to explain." Kids, not mine. But his other family. I felt my breath catch in my throat. I wasn't ready for them. I wasn't ready to see their faces again. I told him, "I'm still healing. I need space." And he whispered, "Okay, but can I come see you? Just for a moment?" I didn't answer right away. I could hear May in the kitchen, banging pots around like she was chasing the devil himself. That woman did, not want to see him near her house. But something in my heart, a softer part of me, said I needed to face him, not to fix the marriage, not to take him back, but to tell my truth, with my feet planted on solid ground. "Come tomorrow," I said. "Just you. Nobody else." The next day, I waited on that same porch. The sky was gray, the kind of gray that presses low on your spirit. And when his car pulled up, I felt every piece of pain I thought I'd let go of rise back up through my chest. He stepped out slowly. He looked smaller somehow, older, like the truth had aged him overnight. When he reached the porch steps, I didn't stand up to greet him. I stayed seated, rooted, steady. He said, "I miss you." And all I said back was, "I miss who I thought you were." He broke then, right in front of me, tears he'd held back for years finally spilling over. He told me everything. Things he should have told me decades ago. How scared he was. How trapped he felt. How he didn't want to hurt anyone, and ended up hurting everyone. I listened, but I didn't rescue him. Not this time. I let him sit in his own truth. And when he finally looked at me, eyes swollen, voice shaking, and said, "Can you forgive me?" I took a slow breath, a long breath, a healing breath. And I said, "I don't know yet, but I'm working on forgiving myself first." And baby, the way his face fell, told me he had never expected that kind of strength from me. People think peace is something you find, like it's hiding under a rock or sitting on a shelf at the grocery store. But peace, real peace, is something you, build brick by brick, breath by breath, choice by choice. After that porch conversation, my husband drove away slow, like he was leaving a piece of himself behind. And maybe he was. Maybe we both were. For the next few days, I walked around May's house quieter than usual. Not sad, just thoughtful, like my soul was rewriting itself. I knew something had shifted. The anger didn't burn the same. The memories didn't sting as sharp. And I realized I didn't need him to hurt anymore, for me to heal. One morning, I stood in May's backyard, barefoot in the wet grass, watching the sunrise crawl up the sky. And I whispered, almost to myself, almost to God, I'm ready. Not ready to fix a marriage. Not ready to erase the past. Just ready to walk forward, without the weight on my shoulders. So I went home. Alone. Not to return to the life we had, but to close it gently with my own 2 hands. The house felt smaller than I remembered. Quieter. Like the walls were holding their breath. I walked from room to room, touching the memories, but not letting them hurt me. He wasn't there. He had gone to stay with one of his adult children. Maybe that was for the best. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where everything once felt whole, and I wrote him a letter. Not of anger. Not of blame. But of truth. I wrote, I forgive you. Not for you, but for me. I will not return to what we had, but I will pray for your healing, the same way I prayed for mine. You were a chapter in my story, not the end of it. I folded the letter, placed it on his side of the table, and walked out with nothing but my purse and my peace. For the first time in my life, I wasn't running toward someone or away from someone. I was just walking with myself. And that felt holy. In the months that followed, I traveled. I joined a book club. I took a cooking class. I learned to dance again, slow, soft, like my heart was humming. I even made friends who knew me not as his wife, but as the woman I truly was. And one night, in a little cafe downtown, I laughed. A real laugh. A full laugh. A laugh that shook the dust off my spirit. People turned to look at me, but I didn't care. I felt alive. That's when I understood something I wish I had learned years earlier. Peace doesn't sound like silence. It sounds like freedom. It sounds like breath. It sounds like your own name, spoken kindly, by you. So here I am now, 60 years old, wiser than I ever wanted to be, and softer in places I thought were hardened forever. If you're listening to me right now, baby, hear this. You are allowed to start over, at any age, at any moment, with nothing in your hands but the truth. And when life knocks you down, and people laugh, don't you worry, because somewhere out there, someone, maybe even God himself, is reaching out to catch you. And that kind of love, that kind of protection, that kind of grace, baby, that's the beginning of everything beautiful.